Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with your Sensei Alba. Here it is around 8:10, excuse me, 1:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I found a little more comfortable spot. Um, Done all my errands, so I thought I'd enter in to Dreamy Dreamland with you and tell you more about the old crone. And we had a few chatters this morning, so let's have some more. And again, thank you for those who have left something in my PayPal. And remember, my email is the dude awake 42 at Gmail, right? The dude awake 42 at Gmail. All one word, all lowercase. Okay? And so I told you how I got to Ireland. And I mean, this is a series, so I'm not going to constantly repeat everything. But the first episode was about how I got to Ireland and to Dublin and Trinity, and how I met the old crone at the Trinity Reserve Library, my little Carol, when she saw me looking at old Sumerian documents looking for the key. And then she told me to come and, forget this place, come visit me at my farm. So I did, and I told you about how we drove up there and how we got there. And I'm still digging around in my photos to see if I can find any of that period of time. So I got there, and she showed me around, and her house from the outside looked like a nice little country cottage, farm cottage. But we went in, and it just went on forever and ever and ever. And anyways, it looked like it was built, to have at least 50, 60 people there at any one time. And I'm sure it did. But when I was there, it was just pretty much me and her. There were a couple of parties where a bunch of people showed up, but the first week, woke up in the morning, I had the breakfast, Irish breakfast, blood sausage and eggs and potatoes and and oatmeal and fruit and cheese and there's this Irish soda bread that's just to die for, especially when it has cream on it, cream, honey, and jams, and all these things she made. She had her own bees, she had her own, fruit trees. She had, she did not buy anything at the supermarket, and maybe a few special things, but pretty much everything was there, and she made it, and she, I was a pretty good cook by then, via my grandma. And my mom was a pretty good baker, and I learned a little bit about baking, but I knew that it wasn't I like doing things that I can be really passionate about. Thing is, once I get pretty good at it, I'm not quite as passionate. The only thing have always been passionate about is electricity, right? And too bad, the kind of electricity that I play with, even today, they don't like to talk about. When I was, in 72 and 73, when I was out in the West, and I was working for Dick Powell Electric, and I worked at Los Alamos and San Diego and Kirkland Air Force Base and a few unnamed places, playing, and my specialty was high voltage and power supplies, and exotic power supplies that could deliver things at specific frequencies and specific other calibrations. And what was interesting was Grandpa Stoll taught me a lot about that. And I then belonged to a lot of esoteric and occult electrical engineering crews. I was part of the IEEE and their special research group. and which were the boys that put together the Philadelphia experiment and the Montauk Project and the Rainbow Project and a few other projects of that ilk, meaning time travel. And but the old crone had some pretty interesting stuff because she had a ton of electricity, but she did not come off the grid. And where she was getting it from, even I could not discern. And so, and that I kind of realized relatively, within the first week, because, first day had to have breakfast. She had this list of things for me to go do. She had me cut a lot of wood that first day. After drinking that first tea of like giving you, it's like pretty amazing. I could just ching, 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 just cut wood like a machine. And then she said, "Oh, come here. I have a few electrical issues." And she wanted me to get rid of a buzz in her really fine, what's the name of this? I mean, really well-known audio company, A&R. That's it. I don't know what A&R stands for, but audio research. Yeah, that's what it stands for. So she had like in her dance, and the dance floor was, you could have 100 or more people dance in there. She had a band you could have a band there, and she had a great PA, and she had reel to reel, and she had a great stylist, and a lot of records, big time record collection all the way back. And there was a little buzz in there, and she wanted, I think she caused the buzz so I could fix it just to see how good I was. And that was the first day. And the next, then we had around 1:00, we had, supper. She called it supper, and the English call it tea. And that's kind of your big meal. And so we had a nice stew and lots of vegetables and lots of bread, and then lots of tasty things, and then the second tea. And we were drinking the second tea the whole time. So by the time we went up to her library, my brain was sharp as a pencil. And so she showed me a number of things that she wanted me to look at. And my studies were basically to suspend my disbelief. Meaning I'd already, gone through the Catholic rigmarole, and I had studied with, many different Catholic sects and Christian sects, and they were all scholars rather than scholastics or folk who were run by dogma. So I still had, I had a pretty good open mind, and my grandma definitely had an amazing open mind. And because when she came to America at 19, after she married my grandpa on a boat, my grandpa came to be J.P. Morgan's surgeon barber, and my grandfather came from Rome. My grandma came from the islands of Sicily that were more Celtic than Roman. And so, back in the day when Rome kept sending legions to Ireland and they just never returned, the Irish kind of had people in those islands and started to ease into Italy, and the Roman Empire was petrified of the Celts. Right? So my grandma learned how to read. Because that whole J.P. Morgan loved books. He never read them, but he loved them. So all the houses and places he had all over Manhattan were full of books. And the man who ran this was a black African-American scholar, and he was collecting the books for J.P. Morgan and creating his library. And his art collection, this guy was quite the refined gentleman, and the black man. And he had a PhD, and he was a lawyer, and he was quite quite the amazing guy. Anyway, so I had a pretty good education by the time I showed up at the Crohn's, and I went to prep schools that you know were for you know made Deerfield look like a public school. So I mean, I went to school with the richest, most powerful people on the planet, and so I had a very diverse. And my parents were also very artistic and cultured in their own way. And so I had quite the education by the time I was 19 and met the crone. So, but her whole thing was to, okay, that's good. That's a good start, but forget that. And look at this. And so she showed me that everything that's in his story is a joke. It's a cartoon. It has nothing to do with who we really are, that we are we are gobs, science fiction, science fair project. We are this little body is not who we are. This is an avatar that we were stuck in, right? And the karma is the prison fence around us, right? And until we can overcome that karma, we're not getting out. So the world ain't going to end anytime soon. Now, it doesn't mean that things can't get, we had 900 years of the Dark Ages. So basically, what the old crone really brought to me was to live in the moment, right here, right now. This minute is all we got. The past is the past, the future isn't here yet, right here, right now. So you have to be in state, first off, and you have to have conscious intent, I am. Conscious intent, I am. Conscious intent, I am. Meaning, you're not going to do anything unless you have this conscious intent. You're going to do this, right? And the more you get that, the more you see what you have to do. And that's what she wanted me to do the stuff she wanted me to do, because she just didn't want me to be a puddinhead doing things for her. She wanted me to have a conscious intent, I am, right? The other thing is conscious awareness, I am. You have a 360 all the time. No, so I got a wall here and a wall here and a wall there and just an opening there. So I'm pretty safe. No one's going to creep up on me. I'm going to see him coming a while. So that's how you need to be. You have to have conscious intent and conscious awareness. And that prayer, conscious intent, I am. Conscious intent, I am. And, in the comic book they call the King James Bible, there's a scene where Moses is up on the mountaintop with the goats. He's got a midlife challenge, and Bulmo, the burning bush, is there, right? And the burning bush is talking to him. And so, Moses is pretty smart. He's been well educated. So he kind of knows what's going on. So burning bush says, Moses, you have to go back to Egypt and bring back, free the Hebrews, right? Now, he the slavery that the burning bush was talking about wasn't the Egyptians, because, the Hebrews in Egypt were living fine. They're the upper middle class. They were kind of bankers, and they had the bling, and whenever anybody needed some bling, they would go to the Hebrews. And that's where, when the Hebrews finally hit Europe, and all those kings having wars needed bling to pay for it, and wouldn't let the Jews and the Hebrews be, they'd have them there because they were smart. They needed smart guys. They had a sense of history. They needed that. They were somewhat good soldiers and good tacticians, good business people, but they had the bling. And so that is where the Hebrew nation became known as the Jews, for jewelry. Jewelry. Right? You're not going to read that in any book. Right? Now, people always go on and on. Oh, I love the New Testament. Well, it's a comic book written by monkeys, And so And that's as good as anybody else's comic book. I'm not putting it down. It's just a comic book. But if you have conscious intent, I am, and conscious awareness, I am, you will be able to see the keys, the code, because everything is written in the code. For those who know, they can read the code, right? So, and that's why those books, even though they're comic books, they're still holy. And the Muslim folk, they are like Christians on steroids. They are the Hebrews, the Christians, the Muslims. They are the triad of the people of the book. They're cousins, and that's why they fight. They're cousins, right? And they're easily distracted. They don't want to look at what's really important. And that's not even their soul, because their soul is simply a server, the true essence. If you read the Bible, Jesus is always talking about the spirit. He's never talking about the soul, the spirit, right? So this is what the old crone wanted me to twig to, because she was going to take me on journeys, and I'm going to take you on those journeys. That would necessitate me to suspend my disbelief or my belief in any organized orthodoxy dogma, right? And that's why today I don't believe in anything. I have faith in love, because we're still here. It's amazing we're still here. Now, there are a whole bunch of people who are, if you're on public or social media, they all go on about their little silos of, belief, whatever it is. And there are a lot of you go on YouTube, there's a lot of great stuff on there. You go on a lot of people's websites, there's a lot of great stuff, right? And you should look at it, but not believe in it. Just bring it in and give it, like a good example would be Coast to Coast, right? It was started by a guy named Art Bell, and when he did it, it was a piece of art, right? It was art. Now they have a guy, George Noy, and George is just a Kleenex salesman. He's really nothing. He's basically came from the Navy, so he has a military industrial edge. He's worked in the rest of his life. He worked as a TV or radio station news manager. He didn't even go out there to report it, right? He was just an administrator, and that's kind of what he does with his show, Coast to Coast. But Art Bell puts so much. Ella, how you doing? Caught me live. Yep. So did you get my emails, Ella? Oh, so Ella's, been able to get a hold of me on the email, right? Right, Ella? Right? The dude awake 42@gmail, right? And she has asked me many questions, and I've given her many things to think about. I never give her an answer per se. I give her a thing to think about. So, what have you thought about? Like, let's see. Let's see. A reminder on YouTube, my lovely. Okay. So there's a buddy of mine from Roanoke, Virginia. This kid is really sharp. He writes voluminously, right? And he is like in the Superman, Batman, Joker world, but he's rewriting it in his own point of view. And so this episode, Carne Evil, Victor is examining the musket ball on the table that you're interested in, as is your story. Victor, actually, number one, had a lot more, which I dug up almost quite literally, Greeley Valley, Iowa, has an old ghost story which is reminiscent of what is going on there. Carne Evil is a legend about the haunted or cursed circus run by wicked German ringmaster by the name of Ludwig von Tuckenucker. Hmm. There's an old rhyme that may information brought up. Let's see, Victor. When the moon is full and the trees are bare, walk through the cemetery if you dare, where skeletons rot and corpse fester. Locate the tomb, the skull of a jester. Feed it a token all shiny and new. It is then carne evil shall return to you. So, so that's my buddy. So he's writing and writing, and he sends it all to me, and I love it. And I try to give him insights, but I'm now Stephen King. This guy writes way better than me. I'm writing stream of consciousness stuff. Thank you, Al. I feel everything in my heart. So anyway, what did Al send me? Do. Okay, thank you, PayPal. Thank you for someone who sent something in. Then here's my buddy Brent, and he's all about politics, right? And so he's all about Israel and Palestine. Over 300 Palestinian Iraqis, a public call for full peace with Israel, right? And pretty much anything that you pull down about things such as that are irrelevant. What's relevant is love's unconditional forgiveness, right? And when you have wars, you're not going to have, and George Bush, go on Jimmy Dore, and he's got his latest, but Jimmy he does more than I do. But he has a thing of where George Bush he's on a speaking tour, right? And it's just a way for people to funnel millions of dollars into his bank account, right? And he goes on there and he's like, and so this guy jumps up and screams at him, why don't you apologize for the millions of people you killed, in Iraq? And he just, before they drag him away. And first these old ladies try to shut him up, and then these big burly guys in black outfits with tasers, drag him out of there. And, if you were to take George Bush today and Donald McDonald Trump and Jojo, the used car salesman, together, you couldn't tell the difference because there is none. So that's why that's not relevant. What's relevant is what's in your heart. And that's what, from the beginning, the oldcrown was trying to tell me, is that, this is what it is. This is what is all around you. This is what's going on, right? Yes, Al says it right. How magnificent we are creating all that is, and then tricking ourselves that it's something outside of ourselves. No kidding, And it isn't. And it's deeper inside, and it's not inside like this body. I mean, that's the trick. That is the thing that we get distracted by. Is that we get distracted by our body. You want to eat something, house, car, sex, drugs, rock and roll. None of that is relevant. It's a distraction, And that's why, if you're young, you can try it out and get a little distracted, and that's cool. But as you get older, you should conscious intent, I am. Conscious intent, I am. Conscious intent, I am. And to feel safe, conscious awareness, I am. Conscious awareness, I am. Conscious awareness, I am. And the King James, um, when Moses was up on that mountain talking to burning bush, Moses, smart guy, he realizes knowing the name of whoever you're talking to gives you the full Monty of who they are. So he asks the burning, so what's your name? And the burning bush says, yeah, tricky boy. Well, I'm going to give you straight up. And so the thing and the King James, I am who I am. Only Popeye says that. So that is not what the burning bush said. The burning bush said, I am a work in progress, and you are my co-creator. You are my reflection. You is what I am looking at so I can realize myself. So that's the kind of little dance we're in, right? And this is on one of the lower rungs. We are so in the backwaters. We look at ourselves as we're so important. We are so human-centric, Everything we do is, we tweet, oh, my puppy is just like me, No, sorry, your puppy is a lot smarter than you are. Your puppy can smell more things that's on your smartphone, and and we look at our beautiful garden planet as a big box store that we can just destroy to get whatever we want. No, that's not it. James P7, I see you're at a different place today. That was quite ending your last video. Yep. See, right. Everything is reflection. Yep. And so, I found this place and it's nice. It's very Goldilocks. Like I said, it's a wall in front of me, a wall behind me, a wall here, and an opening there. So I'm consciously aware that where I'm at, kind of safe. Yes, there is, TV cameras everywhere, but hey, so I have a very nice Wi-Fi, and they're not kicking me off. I've already been here half an hour, give or take, and again, this is not, it's about 25 miles from my front door, but it's still not a hot, parking lot like I was this morning. I got there, and as soon as the sun hit me, it was like, even with the windows open, it was like toasty. So I was probably there for 20 or so minutes, and then I had to get out of there. So here I am. So, the bottom line, conscious awareness, I am. Conscious awareness, I am. Conscious awareness, I am. Then you say, oh. And people go, I can't meditate. I keep going, oh. And you let all the air out of your lungs. See, I haven't taken a breath in yet. Oh. I'm still breathing out. Oh. You do that 3 times, and you'll be in state. Conscious aware I am. Conscious aware I am. Conscious aware I am. Oh. Got it? And conscious intent I am. So the intent is to be in state. Awareness is to notice the state. If you're just sitting there, oh, I'm meditating. Oh, why can't I meditate? No. I mean, that's fine. You need to do that to get all that. You need to expectorate or eliminate all of that from you. And then you can meditate. I mean, you're always meditating. That's the real interesting thing, is that we're always in state. It's just we're not consciously aware of it, and we don't have any intent what to do with it. So in the first week with the oldcrown, that's pretty much what she was having me do. Cut wood, fix things, read books. Then we'd fool around after dinner. We'd dance or play music or go on long walks at night in the dark forest. And we would do walking meditation, which is kind of interesting. And the fact that we did it, in this dark. I mean, there was no light. Couldn't see anything. Even when your eyes got used to it, there was no light for you to see anything. And so you really had to move your intent out. Otherwise, you get a stick up your nose, you know, or step off a cliff, you know. So, and because this dark woods wasn't like any dark woods you guys have ever seen. Right up my street. And it's up everyone's street. You know, this is where we all are, and we're not getting out of here until we can be consciously aware I am and consciously intent I am, right? Those are the only two things we have to learn here while we're in this avatar of this body, right? Because, yeah. So I've died 6 times. I kind of have a slight familiarity with it. And I still have another 3 to go before I go home for good. I mean, they let me come home every now and then, to just have a piece of cake and a cookie and, little party hat. But then I have to come back. Because otherwise I'd be thrown into the karmic blender and who knows where I pop out. I mean, I pop out probably where I belong or need, because that's what happened this time. But I have the opportunity, being a lucky bastard, to actually, if I can stick to it, go all the way to that next rung of the ladder, right? And that's, we are so on the bottom of the rung. It's like that's why people, don't even try. They just go along. And now there's all kinds of demonic creatures or when you ever use those words, it adds a whole stuff that isn't even there, right? So demons are just energetics of a different type. That's all. And the story I'm writing now, ear hair. Okay, let's see. I'm going to give this a try. That's legacy. That's legend. Oh, ear hair isn't up here. Well, I'll have it loaded up next time. But there's legend. Let's see. I'll read a little bit of these guys. Am I still there? Am I still there? Am I still there? Let's see if I'm still there. It's loading up. Okay. So this is book 3 of Legacy. There's what's her name? Yeah, I'm still there. Yep. So, okay, here I'm going to read it to you. Book number 3, Our New Old No Fear Legacy. From yesterday's nowhere of history to our here and now of tomorrow, within our non-linear realization of our existence, love's co-creation of our conscious free will ascending eternal spirit. The only moment we have is now. So you can see that I can't even read my own stuff and it's typed out because it's poetry, and that's one of the, okay, let's see. Where's that little cursor? That's another problem, being somewhat semi-blind. Let's see. A novel of issues to represent. Same as it ever was, don't believe a word I say. With faith, go with love within me, co-creation, and so say we all. Chapter 1. This is how it begins. It is mother of us all. Lounging on crapped out, stretched, thrown out, unwanted Walmart slave girl lawn chairs. And I just, in that one gigantic run on sentence, I just gave literary reference to about, to Homer, to, um, you know, James Joyce, to Mr. Moby Dick and Charles Dickens, and, a whole bunch, right? I'm just trying to be too tricky for my own good. Call me love's unheard voice, and I say, each must have the ability to bring by their presence the most positive outcome to our community's cultivation's ability to change for the better the social, political, economic prosperity for all our community, all our relations. As Homer, Bella, and I, Al Bob, gazed up at the stars on that clear night in the deep green of 6606, where there was no incandescent big box store bottom line reality for 60 miles in any direction. That's the deep green. That's why I love it. There is no light, but the new chemtrails are spraying. You don't see them except at night or during the day. It's a silver, like yesterday. There's no real noise except my neighbors every now and then, and a dog off in the distance. And there's a highway about 8 miles from me, so I can big truck shifting down the hill. I hear that, or motorcycles. But other than that, there's nothing. Right? There's a few planes that fly here and there, but there are 2 medical helicopters that fly relatively in my airspace, right? And I'm a big airplane fan, so I hear something, I kind of jump up and look. And yesterday there was a real loud helicopter, and I thought it was a Chinook. And I'm looking every which way, and my ears are pretty good, so it kind of echolocated it. And the helicopter was a Bell Commander, and it was zipping along pretty fast, and the sound was bouncing off the mountain, so that's why it sounded louder than it really was. But it was about 2,000 feet, and I could barely see it. There wasn't a cloud in the sky, and the whole sky was silver. So someone's putting something in the sky to either be used to whatchamacallit. It's like 9/11. It was a perfectly blue sky, but there was stuff in the air so you could have a holographic projection. As Homer, Bella, and I, Al Bob, gazed up at the stars on the clear night in the deep green 6606, where there was not a incandescent big box store bottom line reality for 60 miles in any direction, our island of seeming transformational serenity outside the vastness of the galactic mysteries of what we were doing with our seeming insignificant lives, but I thought we were changing the world. It seemed so true and bona fide with all our relations, state, faith of love's co-creation. But what they, with a question mark, said, what real was the plutocratic, unsustainable, mercantile exaggeration of loves, including what I thought. Well, I could go on, but it's hard to read out loud. It reads much better just in your head. So Um, uh, let's see if I can go back to that. Yep, there I am. So I can read what you guys are saying. My street. Yep. No, it's not a McDonald's. It's a supermarket, though. Very high end. Super duper high end. I mean, if this was a McDonald's, it'd be so much noise you couldn't hear anything. But it's hardly, all you hear is kind of air handler and the backing up of some cart. But anyway, so let's get back to the old crone. So she was, that first week she was indoctrinating me to just not believe in anything. And then she was going to show me some interesting stuff. Right? So we did all those things, chopping wood, fixing things, reading, doing research, collecting herbs for her, and then preparing them to put into extracts and serums and salves and such. And yep. Well, I found this place and it's quiet and it's nice and they're not bugging me to get out or taking me out here. It's 41 minutes and 28 seconds. And you're all there and I thank you. And it is 30 miles away and someone, put $50 into my PayPal last week and it finally went through. I put $40 worth of gas. That's what it costs to fill my tank up, $40. So I did that. So I have gas to coming back here and there for, at least the rest of this week. I'm going to go someplace else tomorrow. That's very nice. They have great pumpkin pancakes. So I'm going to go there. And they have a very nice, that's the place that has the couch with the interesting background. That's my next spot. Because when I go someplace, I just don't go to do this or do one thing. Or I have to have like a line, which makes sense for me to use that gas and wear my car and etc. It's like John wants me to go with him to Texas, and but I would love to go. I think it would be great. It would be great video, that's for sure. But he can get anxious just for me talking on the telephone, and he hangs up. I mean, how can I safely go on the road with him until he can, actually commit to, being him rather than the anxiety that he lets himself be taken away with. And that's a problem with being in your body. Fast food aficionado, can I send you some grocery money? Yes, you can. Send me any kind of money. Please, and whatever you can afford, I really appreciate it because I'm like always, I live on, after my medical and this and that kind of expenses, I have $400 a month, and it's really interesting because by cutting down on buying stuff, it's much better for my psyche, my soul, I know people who spend $400 just on their internet, on all the different platforms that they subscribe to. So yes, the dude awake 42 at Gmail, in one line, and let's see. I'll go on to email. There it is. Go to my spot. Come on. My friend Brad, the Politico, his stuff just wants to control. Come on. Won't let me do it. He's overtaken my but not really. I just don't know how to click him out. So And I don't want to get distracted from that, right? And and that's the thing about these things, is that they're distractions. They take us away, right? So yes, um, the dude awake 42 at Gmail, all one thing, lowercase, right? And so Ella, she's very good. She corresponds to me on the internet, right? You can do it. Ella does it all the time, right? And the more any of you do it, the more it is. So anyway, back to the old problem, because that's what we're talking about here. Um, the major thing that I learned from her was to go into state, to be able to be in state all the time, to be consciously aware I am and consciously intent I am. So when I have conscious intent, I can accomplish anything, right? When I'm consciously aware, I'm, totally aware what's around and what's going on, and I'm not, being threatened or anything, so I have no anxiety, right? So those are two major things that most people get hung up in, is being anxious and not being able to do what they want to do. Just by saying those two things, consciously aware I am, consciously aware I am, consciously aware I am. Then you can knock like that annoying sound, it's some alarm saying, hey, look at me. And that's just like, you on the internet. It's like you're some kind of conscious, unconscious alarm going, ooh, look at me. So it's very simple. When people, and a lot of people, how do I meditate? Oh, I want to know about the occult and esoteric. Well, bingo. They're the everyday. They're just, what do those words mean? Hidden knowledge, nothing else. No boogeyman, no like magic powers, no Harry Potter, none of that. It's being aware and conscious intent. That's it. And then you can read the codes in all these sacred books. They scream at you. When you have conscious intent, it's right there. Oh, look, how could I miss that? And I used to, many a time, I had, when I would stumble into some really nice place, like the Deep Green, I turned it into a mystery school and had students, but they couldn't shut themselves. Oh, I can't meditate. I said, all you got to do is say, conscious intent, I am. Conscious, and they couldn't even do that. Now, you guys on the chat here have all done that. I can sense it, And you're going to go and practice it after we hang up here, And that's when you can look at things with a clear eye. This one right up here, in your pineal gland, your third eye. That's what sees things. These, not so much. Very limited. Your dog's nose smells more bandwidth than your eyeballs can see, And I'm going blind, so I can barely see. So, but how do I get around, Because I got this guy here. Right? So, and I'm always conscious intent, conscious aware, And that's all that, and that is the singular lesson that the old crone gave me, right? But then she took me on adventures, for 2 months. It took me about a week and a half to get up to the place where she said, okay, we're ready for adventures. And so, the first adventure, so I'm going to tell you about the first adventure before I sign off, because I'm doing this in series. So I'm going to try and keep all these under an hour. So we're right now at 49 minutes. So about 10 minutes I can tell this. So we spent a week and a half, and I fixed things, I chopped things, I collected things, I made things. I read a lot of books, and learned how to read the codes of them and to look for them and to be consciously intent, consciously aware. I really got good at that. We did, walking meditations in the woods where it was a deep, dark woods that there's no light at all, even once your eyes got used to it. Like my bad eyes see better at night than they do during the day. So um, I couldn't see anything. But with my third eye, I could see everything, right? So once I was at that point, thanks, buddy. I love you. You're the man or girl. You're the fast food. I love you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all you guys do to keep me on the air, right? And I'm not, I'm trying not to mention it more than 3 or 4 times a show because I don't want it to be a commercial. Just a little reminder, because when I wouldn't remind you, nobody sent me anything, and then it was getting a little tight, and that's why you wouldn't see me for a while. But now you'll see me the next couple of weeks a little more often. And I will try and come on between 11 a.m. and 1 a.m., 1 p.m. That's when I'll try and get on there, that 2-hour period. So anyway, and maybe even 10-ish. If it's other place closer to me gets their Wi-Fi together, but they've been bought by really rich people and they're not turning their Wi-Fi on because they don't want the poor people to use, be that as their collection space to go online, right? They don't care. So anyway, back to it. So about 2 weeks in, and we had done all these things, and we had tried ambrosia and the third tea and had sex, and that was kind of fun. This lady who looked older than old could turn herself into one hot tamale, 19-year-old, 20-year-old, 30, whatever, and almost looked at, whatever color hair whatever I was thinking of, that was like turning my hormones on. Bingo, she would be it, right? So to think that the old crone looked like the old crone that I thought is the old crone, who knows, And that's why it's hard to look her up in a book or find a photo or, any of the above. So anyway, so she says, okay. And it was after lunch, we had our supper and we had our first tea in the morning and then a second tea for doing a little intellectual stuff. And then, and I thought we'd spend another 4 hours hitting the books and writing stuff and thinking about stuff. But she says, no, it's a beautiful day. Let's take a walk. And so we take a walk out. And we usually took our walks in the mornings and at nights, in sunrise and sunset, sunrise into, where she says, okay, I want you to dig this stuff up and do this and do that. And then she'd go wherever she went and I would do what she told me to do. And then the sunsets is after dinner, breakfast, supper, dinner, which was a nice meal, but not as big as supper. Anyway, so, and that usually, the sun always went down there around 9 p.m., right? Even in the winter, And so, anyway, she had a lot more sunlight there than any place else, other than Sweden, right? The sun never set in that place. So, it was probably 2:00 in the afternoon, right about this time. Right now it's 2:02. Right about this time, she goes, "Oh, let's take a walk." And so we took a little walk, and there was a concrete swimming pool that we swam in, and we didn't swim in the Great Link, and that's what it was. It looked like a pond to me. She called it the Great Link. This water that was sacred, and we're not going to really swim in it, So, but the swimming, I love swimming. So she had a concrete swimming pool, it's couldn't beat it. And it had water coming from the waterfall. She had a little kind of it going off this way and filling the swimming pool all the time. And running out of the swimming pool down into another little pond that the fish were in, and another little pond that was the wetlands. And then we had all the fields that we were growing, the turnips and the broccoli and the carrots and the potatoes and the spinach and all of that was getting fed by the wetlands. So it was very nice. And all of this life was going through it before it hit the vegetables. And we were our protein was the fish and eggs, right? We didn't eat any other animals. And and every time we had a fish or anything Croatian, crustacean, she would always thank it and, do that whole scene that was straight out of um, Avatar movies, So um, anyway, so we walk around the pond, which she called the Great Lake, the lake, she called it the lake, and and we went around it 3 times, and then we went over to where the pond or the waterfall was, and they were, the lake was here, the pond was here, the swimming pool was over here, and it just kept going down the hill to the fields, right? And the waterfall came down, and there was it branched off into where it would go into the swimming pool. But there was a little pond there for a splash in the pond, and we would play around with that because it was fun. But between the two, there was a very beautiful piece of grass. It never got mowed. I had to mow a lot of grass, but this was one place that was always beautiful, always green, always never grew. It was perfect. It was like a carpet, and it wasn't moss. And we took our shoes off and we walked on that, and we went behind. There's a big waterfall, and the big waterfall was like, you looked at it out into the sunlight, and it was like this unbelievably vast movie of what's his story. I mean, and other planets, and just a cornucopia of stuff that moved so fast you couldn't really capture what was going on. You could say, "Whoa, what's what? Whoa!" But the other little tributary that went pretty slow. You could actually watch it, and it was almost slow motion. And with the conscious intent, I am. And so we went there, and she said, go into state, and I'm going to go into conscious intent, and we're going to walk through this waterfall. And so we did, and where we came about was, Atlantis, or something there too, not Atlantis, probably way before Atlantis. Plus, there was all kinds of creatures walking around. This is where all our relations, dogs and cats and lions and cheetahs and giraffes and everybody, and everyone had conscious intent. So no one used their mouth to communicate. It was all what was known as soul speak. You could just hear the conversations, and if you were overhearing some conversation that you really weren't part of, the creatures would kind of, say, "Hey, I'm listening to this," and you'd be caught out, and what can I say? So we walked around that, and there were different stores of different times, and there were like different alleys of different cultures. It was, quite extraordinary because all of this stuff was kind of going on at the same time, but it was extraordinarily malleable. And that is what we live in. We live in this, nothing is linear. It's all very malleable. And that's what you got to get into your head, that you can navigate this. And it's no big hocus pocus, bonamocus, It's conscious intent, I am. Conscious intent, I am. Conscious intent, I am. Conscious awareness, I am. Conscious awareness, I am. Conscious awareness, I am. In through the nose. Oh. So, did you get a buzz out of that? Because I'm taking you to these places. I'm not just going to be telling you stories about them. From this point on in our series, You're going to be going there. So, okay, this is where we are there now. And it is the consciously aware intent I am. That's the name of this place. The consciously aware intent I am. Consciously aware intent I am. Consciously aware intent I am. And as we were walking down, I mean, there were all these amazing buildings, all this big, wide thoroughfare. There were no vehicles, no horses. There were no burdens of beasts of burden. Um, Everyone was just walking along, having a happy day, and there were all kinds of little places where people were sitting. I mean, um, though this place was very bright, very you know you looked up and it wasn't a light fixture and it wasn't a sun, but it was photonic light, meaning see how there's shadows. There were no shadows, yet there were shady places. There were places that had comfy little benches, patches of grass, and some were very flat and some were just a little inclined. I mean, everything was there to facilitate everyone's being happy. And that was the overall general feeling. So we're walking along, and we're dressed just in the clothes we are, and people are dressed in all kinds of stuff, and some people aren't dressed at all. We're totally naked. All the animals are definitely, none of the animals had, shoes and socks and shirts. Anyway, but it again was this really nice Goldilocks place, and there were these alleys of different places that had time and space. And we went down this one that was very English, and we stepped into a tea shop. And in the tea shop, there was this very nice young lady, and she had blondish red hair and was very attractive. And she was definitely Irish. She definitely had an Irish brogue, and she spoke Gaelic, and I could understand what she was saying. I mean, I had studied Gaelic a little bit in Trinity, but I was understanding, and she knew the oldcrown, and she was a student. And the oldcrown said, well, I have some errands to do, so I want you to stay here. And she has the best cookies, and she will read your tea leaves and everything else. So she had the runes, and she had the tarot cards, and she had a whole bunch of other divinative tools. And she made up a nice pot of tea, and it was something akin to the third pot. And we drank that and ate these great little yummy cookies. And we talked of all different kinds of things. And then she goes, okay, the tea is cooled enough. Here, give me your cup. And she poured out what I didn't drink, and then poured in some more. And then she swished it around, and she just kind of slowly poured it into another cup and handed me just the liquid. And then she read those tea leaves. And she told me basically everything about this life. That there would be these four separate motifs, but the first one I've already gone through. The second one was starting with my leaving America to go to Ireland, and going to the National Theater, then going to Trinity, then meeting the crone and doing that. And then I would come back to New York and do X, Y, and Z. And that would be the second one. Then I'd go away again, and I'd go to New Mexico. That would be my Western trip. And I'd be gone for about 3 years, and then I'd come back to New York. And that would be my next thing, and that would be a much longer period because I got back to um, from my Western trip. I got back in 1975, so I was 25 years old, and I went to Williamsburg, got my big loft, and did all kinds of stuff there, and was doing all kinds of arty stuff in Soho and Tribeca, because I'd already lived in Soho and Tribeca in the 60s and early 70s, and I helped make it happen. I was the dude. I was the dude. And I walked around in my pajamas all the time. So, so when I got to Williamsburg, one of the things I got very involved with my rabbi, the guy who owned my building. He owned a lot of buildings. He was one of the head rabbis of Lubavitcher. And so with that kind of religious responsibility came business responsibility. So when I came back from the West, I was just, couch surfing at friends, and I looked on whatchamacallit, the Village Voice, and realist. Oh, well, lofts and Williams. Well, I call this guy. Hey, I am looking for a loft. Oh, you're an artist. Oh, yes. Okay, I can't see you today, but tomorrow I can show you the building. And this is how you do it. You take the JNEM train over to Williamsburg Bridge, get up at Marcy Avenue, come down 11th Street, and from the train you will see a building on fire. When you get off the train and come, down Broadway and then onto 11th Street, walk towards the fire. And I'll be the man in, a black coat and a black hat and a big white beard. And I said, okay. And they just called me Rabbi. Okay. So I said, so wait a minute. You mean you're at the fire now and it'll be small? It's, oh, no, it'll be really on fire. Fire trucks will be there, but it's not on fire now. Oh, no, it's not on fire now. So I'm going, okay. And it's, later, many years, I was teaching a class in, sociology. And we were going through different, subtitles of what that is. And they were talking about cults. And they said that the Hasidim were cults. And they were trying to describe Jewish lightning, and I was experiencing it right then and there. So anyway, I won't say anything more than that. And so I went, and there he was, and I said, this is the building you want? I said, no. So we walked about 3 blocks down and then turned, and this gigantic building took the whole block, and it was like between the East River and Robles. And they were just building this big building called Roberto Clemente. And it was about 2 blocks from that. And took me up, and he showed me this whole floor, 17,000 square feet. And we took this elevator up to that, took a staircase over here, and then went over there. And then, bingo, we were in this 17,000 square foot space. And we walked all the way to the end, and there was a fire door, and there was another building on the side of the brick wall. And that was a 4,000 square foot amazing loft. The ceilings were like 18 feet high, and there was a pyramid on top of that. And that building was built by a Dutch guy before anybody got there. And he was one of the richest people in New York at the time, back like in the 16 whatevers. And so, and he was a Mason, and this was a Masonic building. The other one was built by other people later. But to get in that building, you had to go through that big, almost hangar of a building, and it was up on the 7th floor. And so I'm looking at this, and it's amazing, right? And it, really doesn't have any heat, and the windows are falling out. I said, "How's the roof?" It goes, "Very tight. No leaks." But there's really no electricity, no gas, no water. No. You do have a drain, but it's way over there. And anyway, I'm going, okay. And I say, so how much? And he goes, well, what do you want to pay? And I said, as little as possible. What can you afford? And so we kind of danced back and forth. And then I said, so he goes, listen, this is what it is. What can you pay? And I said, I could pay $300 a month. He goes, okay. First year, all you have to pay is $50 because there's not, you're going to have to fix this place up. So $50 a month while you're fixing it up. And then, you pay 300. And I said, sounds like a deal to me. So, he introduces me to the super, Kirby, big house of a guy, big black house of a guy, very nice, very, very smart. I mean, he was like, he knew everything about everything. That building was, all the pumps, all the plumbing, all the steam, all the this, all the that. So anyway, and he had his own side hustles on the side. So, and he was just like Benny, the same super guy, but he was Hispanic in Soho. When I had my loft, I had a very similar loft, not as gigantic as this, but half the size, but still an amazing loft. They didn't call it Soho then. We invented that term, south of Houston. And but that was a factory neck of the woods, and that's why all those lofts were there. And Benny ran that, and I was working for Mike Stoll Sr., Grandpa Stoll, and I fixed all these old factories, machines that were built in the 1880s. Nobody even knew about it. Grandpa Stoll knew how to fix them, so he taught me how to fix them. And so that was one of my side hustles with all these guys who had factories making buttons and all kinds of crazy stuff. And I would fix that, and I would always have Benny take me to those places and show me where this circuit was or that circuit. And so Benny at one time said, listen, and he takes me downstairs to the basement, and there were about 10 buildings on Worcester Street, and he had knocked holes through all the walls of the thing, and he made a gigantic gambling, prostitution, opium den, restaurant, every kind of diversion you could think of was there for the workers in all these factories. And, they would go spend all their money down there. And so he was running that, and he had his nephews and his grandsons running the elevators. And so he said, listen, I need you to fix things here. And he breaks me up to this loft. He said, you can live here for as long as you want. As long as I'm here, you can have this. And that was 1968, 67, and 67. And for 2 years, I had this great loft. And, I was going to, super duper prep school in New England. But it was like jail. We never left. So we got there in October 1st. We had a month off for Christmas. We got off like December 5th and came back January 10th. And then we stayed there from January 10th to April, May 1st. So I had most of the time off. So in those days, that was, and before that, I had a basement apartment on 9th Street, Avenue A, and Allen Ginsberg was my neighbor, because he's my upstairs neighbor. He knocked on my door and said, listen, I want, I love gardening. You have this big garden. I had this little teeny basement thing, but I had this gigantic garden. And he goes, and it was walled in. No, it was like another world. And he goes, there's a staircase right in the middle of your little basement here. It goes right up to my apartment. It's just boarded up there. We take the boards, we become roommates. And right then and there, we go up to this thing. I have a hammer, I pull him up, and he had this amazing kitchen. So I love to cook. He had a Carlin stove and a walk-in refrigerator and an amazing, amazing bathroom, right? Whereas I just had a toilet on the wall and a sink. So he got his garden. I got a great bathroom and an amazing kitchen. And Allen Ginsberg is my neighbor, my roommate. And every Friday we would have a potluck dinner. And the intelligentsia, I mean, that's where I met Lisette Modell and Cartier-Bresson. And I studied with her. She's the one who made me the photographer. I mean, I had other people teach. My dad showed me how to take pictures. My best buddy in prep school. He was a brilliant photographer. He showed me how to work in a darkroom, so I had a general knowledge. But she and he taught me really to be the photographer I am, the filmmaker I am. And so it could have been. Yes, he could have been. I don't think so, but no. But the almost, maybe cousins, because he wasn't your average um, rabbi. Because in '70, before I met Donna, he goes, "You read Latin?" I said, "Yeah." And a little Sumerian too. He goes, "Listen, I want you to come to my Lubavitcher, meaning a rabbi school, and I need new blood." So all these guys like this with big glasses and black hats and black coats, and he took me to a rabbi, you know, clothes store, and I got myself the black pants and the pants and the black coat, but man, I wore it in a whole different way. I wore it like the dude. And I found a black hat that didn't have this like donut thing. It had a gigantic rim. And I just kind of wore it like that. And so everywhere I go, I turn everything just a little like that, right? So back at the little town, the spiritual place, the hangout of many, many, many spirits on the backside of the small waterfall of love's co-creation. And I'm in the tea room with this Irish lady in Old England, and she's telling me all about my life to come. Everything I'm going to do, right? And then, she gets to a certain place right about now, and she goes, okay. I said, what do you mean, okay? And she goes, I want you to eat this. And it was like a very gnarly thing. Is that a plant? What is that? And I kind of started chewing on it. And she goes, no, it's liquid. Just put it between your teeth. This is when I had teeth. I had no teeth on one teeth. And just kind of squeeze, just kind of how you eat a artichoke leaf. Just kind of, right? And it was like everything came unrolled. Just, and it's like, one time at the oldcrown's tape thing, I was putting a spool on there, and I'd worked in recording studios, so I kind of knew how to do this. And I said, I know how to do this. And I hit the button, I put the spools on backwards. So it just took one whole spool of audio tape and spat it out onto the floor. And that's exactly what happened to my experience of everything this lady told me, this young woman. And she basically said, listen, when these things happen, you'll have a deja vu, an epiphany. Oh, wow, this is what that lady told me. Oh, wow, this is what that lady told me. And that's been my life. Oh, wow. So that's how I, been kept on the straight and narrow. Well, anyway, it's an hour and 18 minutes. There's 10 of you. I'm going to be nice to this lady and kind of move over so she can clean my table. I can stay there? Okay. Okay. Oh, you're so nice. And you're doing such a great job. Thank you. So anyway, and that's been since then. That was 1969. So in 1969, I go through life not having a clue of what I'm doing, but they said, oh, that's what she told me. So she said I'd be married 3 times. Right? To my first, she said, you're going to have a training wife, and then you're going to have a twin flame, meaning someone who's like right there, right? And she's going to die, right? And I am so blessed that I didn't remember that, right? So when I met this person, and I'll tell you that story, and it's way back in other stories than that, but when she died, I said, ugh. So the third, I have one more wife left in me. And so I've had a lot of girlfriends between my twin flame and now, and not a lot, maybe 10. You know, so she died in 87, so since 87, 87, 97, 2000, about 40 years. Um, so I've had about 10 girlfriends, and I've had a bunch. I have these, what I've been into for the last 7 years or 8 years are these affairs where I meet somebody who's like, whoa, either way outside my, but for this short period of time, we are just simpatico and have an amazing time, right? And so, um, and then we become best of friends. I had this when I was taking care of my folks. I had a house in Jensen Beach, and I met this woman who was a newspaper. She just came out of newspaper school and news school, and she was really smart, really beautiful, and she was brought up. Her father was Irish Catholic, and she was um, from Iran, and he was teaching Iranians how to fly Phantoms, and then the whole thing came, and so his best friend, who was probably going to get whacked because he was a colonel in the Shah's Air Force, he couldn't get out, and he had to take care of a number of people. So he gave this guy this little baby girl and said, "You take her. She's yours. You bring her up. You're my brother. I trust you." This guy, her father, her adopted father, is white with freckles. Looks like Ricky Cunningham of Happy Days, and she's got just olive skin she's just unbelievably beautiful, mysterious, and brilliant, Persian brilliant brain, and she's just has so much in her, and her family has brought her up, and she's had a great education, and she doesn't people know that she's kind of everyone just loves her when they see her, except people who are jealous of her everything. So maybe a third of the population is jealous. Mean girls. Anyway, so we're at a coffee shop. A buddy of mine has his coffee shop in a place called Stewart, Florida, and he's a lawyer. And the back part of the coffee shop is his law office, and the front part is this French kind of a bistro, right? And a big patio with a stage so people can come, and instruments everywhere. Cellos and violins and trumpets and guitars, and you can just go and pick the instrument up and play it if you can play it. And so it's really one of them, and it was right around the. He started building this thing in 05, 06, 07. It was done. It was the bee's knees, and then 08 happened, and all these kids were really smart. Had to go live in their parents' basement because they couldn't finish school, or they just finished, couldn't get a job. So it was one of those quintessential amazing times, and I had a house on the back end of Stewart, and I had another one in Jensen Beach, and I had another one down in the Keys. And these were all kind of shacks on the water, but in really super high-end neighborhoods, right? And totally covered in mangroves. No one even knew they were there. And my lawyer buddy basically said, "So you're making some money. You want to buy, this has just come across my desk. This person wants, this guy died, and everyone's getting rid of his real estate, and you can have this for nothing, So I did. I bought the place in Stewart for nothing, and I bought the place in Jensen Beach for nothing, and the place in the Keys for really nothing. And my parents were in Florida, so I took care of them for 28 years, and that was a place I could, always escape from my parents. And so I'm in my buddy's coffee, and I would go there around 10 when nobody'd be there. I'd have my latte, I'd have my croissant, and all these really interesting people would be working at this coffee shop. And he had a really nice kitchen where you could bake. He had a nice baking oven, so there was this woman who could make amazing croissants and amazing pastries, and they ground their own. Everything was top notch, the best. and at cost. So you can get a really nice glass of wine for $3. I mean, a really nice glass of wine. Really nice cup of coffee for $1, right? And so, and after a certain hour, the prices kind of went up. And on the weekends, when the rich swells would come in, they would get hit. But in the mornings, when the working class, you could get a nice thing. And on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday nights, which was party nights for the kids. Again, it was relatively affordable. And I still have some photos and videos left of that. It was a great time. Anyway, so one day and he had these big long tables, and I had my books spread out, and there was nobody there, and I'd be reading and writing and tapping away on my laptop. And this girl kind of came in, and she had a big bag of stuff, and she kind of took the other big table and spread her stuff out all over it, and was going on and on. And so I looked at her, she looked at me, and I kind of went and looked at her books, and she went over and looked at my books, and mine were all about philosophy. She goes, I have a degree from Stanford in newspaper stuff, but I was really enamored with philosophy and mythology, and all your books are about that. I love that stuff. So we started talking about that. And then I was looking around, I said, well, all your stuff here is about septic systems and water. And she goes, well, I have to write this article about, there's a nuclear power plant here and a big commercial septic sewage plant there, and then all these pig farmers over here, and all of Florida's water, below this point is turning into, toxic blooms. And so anyway, I said, well, I know about that. So I said, you got a car? And she goes, yes. I said, let's get in your car. And I said, you got a press pass? Oh, yes. And so she went, and we went around. And she had a great camera. And this is back in 2006, when everything's going digital. And she has this great Nikon that is not only a great still camera, but a great, film camera. So I said, so who are you working for? And so she was working for her. So her newspaper and TV were the same thing. So I basically said, okay, let's do this story both for the newspaper and TV. And that's going to be your new calling card. You're not just your editor's going to give you something, you're going to do it both. I said, this guy, he does both, right? TV station. He goes, kind of, yeah. So we do this thing for the newspaper. She's a really great writer, and we get great pictures. And then we go interview people and get that. And you can edit it in a freaking camera. It's amazing. And she's really kept on all the technology. Me, not so much. I know. So I was shooting it for her, and then she would edit it. So we do this thing, and it knocks the shorts off of everybody. And so she is like rocketed to the top of that organization, right? And I keep going out on doing things. And so then she's doing the nightly news, it usually takes, 10 years to get to it. She's a wango, right? But that was in Hearst. And so so she's there for 3 years, and she becomes the news editor, because the guy retires. And so she goes from the bottom to the top, and she's a woman of color, and she's, brilliant. And so she basically then, and so I would come back, I'd be there a good deal of the time, but I had other things I was doing. And my Jensen Beach place, I just let her, that was hers. I said, this is yours. And so we were boyfriend, girlfriend, but she was always looking for a husband. She had that, Persian thing, that, Islamic, but she wasn't, she had no real, her father, who she knew from a baby, was this, redheaded, white-skinned Catholic. She kind of grew up bad, but she also had a really strong sensibility towards Islam and towards Judaism, right? Who knew? And Buddhism. I mean, she was every religion, right? So she was just amazing. So we had the greatest. So for 3 years, she had no boyfriend. She would, because she was so gorgeous. These guys would just, and from way high up, older. I was the old guy that she was hanging out with, but she had no buddy her age, because she was so well read. She was just on another plane of existence. So I've had since '06 all these affairs with women who are on another plane of existence, and I'm seemingly the only guy they can hang out with and have fun and just be themselves and be sweet and nice and sexual and dancing, because I love to dance and I love everything about love. And tell us about your time in as a midwife. Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. So this is definitely the stream of consciousness. So I bounce around all these stories. So back to the old. So after we had this amazing experience of this young, um, you know, 20 to 30-year-old woman in this strangest of strange tea houses, in the strangest of strange of lands where everything was going on at the same time, which showed you that there was no linear time. That's really what this whole space was about, was that there was no linear time. So you know, I'm still in the tea shop. The crone comes. Okay, we got to go do something. I go. What do we got? I said, well, just come on. And so, she goes, we'll come back here. Don't worry about it. And so, this was just to show you there is no linear time. You got it. You got it. You got that lesson. You got it. Yes. Okay. So we went back out, went down the backside of the little waterfall, popped out, and got into her Land Rover. And we drove out through the dark forest out onto the end of the cul-de-sac, past Mail Bar, and went up another road, up. And then she goes, we're going to deliver a baby, and you're going to be my doula. What's a doula? You're my assistant, but that's what we call them. And you're going to do everything except catch the baby. You're going to be there. You're going to make food. You're going to, wash, any dirty anything. You're going to, whatever needs to be done that I can't do at that moment, you're going to do. That's what the doula does. Everything except catch the baby. And maybe you might even have to catch the baby. So I had a little training in medicine from being so sick. So I wasn't really gun shy, and and I had seen enough woo-woos to know that that's what it is, and that's where the baby comes out. So I go there, and it's not a house. These are guys who are gypsies. They're Roma, and they're at the end of some other road in their little caravans, and there is this one caravan, and all the guys are outside, smoking and drinking, and boiling water, and that's what they can do, and the crone, and everyone becomes very respectful as soon as her Land Rover shows up, and she jumps out, and she's got again a kind of flight suit, onesie, right? And I'm still wearing the same clothes I showed up in. And I get out, and she goes, he's my doula. And all the women go, And the guys go, I go in with her, and there are 4 old ladies around this young girl and baby. And she's a big thing, and she has got triplets inside her. And the old ladies have never, they've done 1, they've done 2, but 3, and they're all different ways, and their umbilicals are all screwed up, and she kind of sets out a list, and she goes, Miriam, go with my boy here and go get these herbs, and you know what to do with them. So that lady was a real herbalist, right? So I go with her, we pick things up, so the old crone wants me to do it this way. How do you want it done? And she goes, a good student. You asked me what I want you to do. And she goes, I'm very impressed. So she goes, this is what I want you to do. So I did it. I'm very impressed. You did exactly what I told you to do. Which some more of these morons would, but obviously that's why you're with the old crone. So I do that. We make up these teas, and we, prepare them and we put them in. And she's got all these thermos, really nice metal thermos, metal glass on the inside to keep it really hot, and so we don't have to have a fire in there. And so we got about 4 different teas, and she's got like 4 different thermoses, different colors, so they're color coded, and it's quite interesting what's going on, and so. Um, we come out, and she gives this first tea um, to the young girl. The girl's probably no more than 19, maybe 7, sometime somewhere between 17 and 19. And then the women all have a cup of the same tea, and I do too. And it is not the kind of tea that I would drink to chop wood, but it made you very, everyone could feel each other. We were like, connected, really interesting. Kind of like what, what's that psychotropic drug that everyone feels that it's the big rave drug. I forget what it's called, but anyway, kind of like that, but not being stoned at all, but very connected. And so basically the oldcrown has all these women and me and her put our hands on this girl's stomach. Is like gigantic, and we start, because we're all feeling each other, kind of moving things around with our fingertips on this girl's and she's basically naked. She's a little towel around her shoulders and her chest just to keep her warm, and she's wearing a hat, and there is a fire, but we're using instead of wood, we're using peat, and there's an electric heater in there too, and I'm kind of wondering where that's coming from. So and there's a light, and there's a and the oldcrown brought a really super bright light, right? She kind of got it up between her legs, got it there. And so we're doing this. And one of the women is a musician, and she has a squeeze box, right? And she has a violin, right? And so she starts playing really beautiful music. And, and was another woman there who was also a musician, and they would trade off on instruments and sing and still have like a hand on the tummy. And we did that for a good 9 hours. And everyone felt amazingly great, right? So then we have the next team, right? And that kind of energizes us into the best of best moods, where we're laughing and giggling and telling all the old ladies are telling stories about other births and those moron boys, and she's telling stories about all of those guys out there, and all the women are laughing, and it's really hilarious. And I'm not even part of, and I don't, I'm not speaking Roma, but I understand everything they're saying, right? And so we're still moving our fingers around, and then the third tea we take, and crone adds a few drops to this tea and hands it to the mother, right? And she goes, now this is going to help you to start have contractions. All your children are in there, and they're all lined up, and they're all agreeing to come out very happily and with no muss, no fuss, right? So, okay, so she takes that. She starts to have contractions, and then she adds a few other drops to it, and she gives it to that lady, and she's like, not only is she having contractions, but she's super loose. I mean, we have our fingers on her. All the muscles in her stomach start doing things that I've never felt any muscles ever do. And it's like squirting the kids out like toothpaste. And so pretty much like 10, 15 minutes after that, the first one comes out, comes out nice. We swallow them and cut the cord and put them in mom's arms. And then another half an hour, the next one comes out, and you know, no muss, no fuss. Third one, though, there is issues, right? So Old Crone takes the fourth tee, adds a few things to it, does something to it, gives it to the lady, and that guy gets out of there like that. Like, I'm out of here. And he's okay. And what was very strange is that none of them looked alike. The little guy looked like almost African American. He was really dark skinned, dark hair. One of the girls had super red hair. The other girl had like no hair, bald as that. You know. So that was and then, we stayed in there another couple hours and got the mother into breastfeeding and shoveling them between them. I made and went out and in that 12-hour period, I would go out and get, they had a nice little kitchen outside with a gas burner stove, and I would make a big pot of, she'd say, make this kind of stew. I'd go make it. And I would rustle up a bunch for the guys and then take containers in for the ladies. And that was it. And I had the guys chop wood to keep them busy. I had them go through all their stuff to find the cleanest sheets and towels and blankets they could. And that took a lot of time out of, that I did things to distract them. So that was my first doula enterprise. And we did about another 20 babies in the 2.5 months that I was there. So let's see what you guys are saying. I'm an actual lesbian. Now, that is what my first wife said, because I used to spend so much time between her legs with my mouth. It's a tall tale. And see, again, I tell you this story to suspend your disbelief. That's what you got to do. That's what this lesson's about, to suspend your disbelief. And from now on, I'm going to try and find places like this that I can, feel comfortable to spend an hour and 42 minutes telling you a story. Right? So I'm going to do it tomorrow, sometime between 11 and 1. Okay? And I will find myself that other comfy spot, and I'll have my breakfast, and it'll all be good. This eagerness to submit. No, it's co-create. And I do submit. I submit my ego. I have an egoless ego, right? So Mr. Barr, you're doing a good job of being observant. Right. But I did it all because there were all these great women who had been there before me and knew I had no idea what the heck I was doing. I knew how to make a great pot of soup. And I had been trained to, pick herbs and cut them, right? But the other old lady said, "Boy, you're all right. You listen to me and do exactly what I." That's not submitting. That's being part of the clan. That's what it is. Being part of the clan, not the Ku Klux Klan, but the clan mothers. Right? Yep. Being Superman without having to be Superman. I was still being called the kid in those days. Not the dude yet. Well, I mean, some people call me the dude. And do any of you know the Hebrew term booby? Bublika, bubushka. It's kind of Russian, German, Hebrew. Means sweet little one. And that was like all those old ladies. After I did that, and because I saw those old ladies a lot. And then years later, time to 1977, 78. I kept going back to the old crown. And after 78, I couldn't find the doorway through the dark um, forest. But I will tell you all about. We still have many stories. This is 1969 that I'm talking about until 1978. So 9 years of coming and going, visiting the old crown. It's a hat. Yes, it's the hat. See how it sparkles? Okay, I love you all. I'm gonna go. It's 1 hour 45 minutes, and when it hits 45 seconds, I'm gonna hit the little button there once I can find the cursor. Okay, here it is. Here we go. I love you. Remember, conscious intent I am. Conscious intent I am. Conscious intent I am. Boom. Conscious awareness I am. Conscious awareness I am. Conscious awareness I am. Oh.